Welcome back to the OSM channel. So I just finished two videos in which I manufactured these two garden beds. We have the raised concrete garden beds, and then we also have, I'm going to call it a fieldstone strawberry patch, just basically fieldstones mortared together. And I'm really happy with how these came out. I want to start planting, however, we have one issue. I live next to state lands and we get a lot of wildlife that comes down, and whatever I put into the garden, I want to ensure it's protected from wildlife. Now the only problem is, you look at a roll of steel wire fence from Tractor Supply now, and that stuff goes for $200. I didn't want to spend that much money, and then you got to get the post and then the ties. So I mean, you could be looking at $300–400 in materials easily to make a garden fence. However, I'm going to do it on the cheap side. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make a garden fence for roughly about $30. So let's start going over the materials. Now, if you go on Facebook Marketplace, you're always going to be able to find free pallets. In this case, I found a bunch of, these are 4 by 8 foot pallets that I got from an appliance center. And the guy was also giving away these 1 by 1 by 8s for free. And I figure, wow, I'll take those as well, and I think we're going to make those our posts. So I got all the building material for free with the exception of the netting. Now, this roll of netting, this is, they call it wildlife netting. This is 7 foot by 100 foot. And this stuff's really cheap. I paid, I want to say like $15 for this roll. Now, I don't expect this to last forever. You know, if I get 5 years out of it, I'll be happy. But, I mean, for $15, you can't beat it. So, we have $15 for this. And then the only other thing that you really need to buy are screws. In my case, I already had these deck screws laying around. But let's say you got to spend 15 bucks on screws and assume that you have a driver and a drill. That's pretty much all you need. Some other tools I have are a sawzall in case I need to cut these 1 by 1 by 8s. And then I also have a level so we can level off our posts. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out where I want the corners to be. Basically what my plan is, I'm going to have 2 pallets meet each other at a 90-degree angle, and that's going to be the corner post. And then in between the corners, I have a bunch of bamboo plants, and I'm probably going to interlace some bamboo in there to kind of create a barrier to prevent bears and coyotes and other larger animals from getting into the garden. Yes, I could completely line it with these pallets, however, I don't have enough, so I'm really just going to use the pallets for the corner post. So let me measure everything out, and then we will start screwing the pallets together. So we have the 2 pallets intersecting at a 90-degree angle, and all we need to do now is screw them together. I try to make sure that the tops of the pallets are flush, and I like to start off with a countersunk bit. This just helps to prevent splintering when we screw through the grain of this board, but again, everything's nice and flush, 90-degree angle. I've measured off the edges of the garden bed, and we're 3.5 feet in. That's what I want, so just add a couple of deck screws now. Now this pallet has 3 approximately 2x4 members. So I put 2 deck screws at the top, 1 in the middle member, and 1 at the bottom member. And that makes for a pretty darn strong corner. So we'll just sneak our countersunk bit in the middle here. Now we have a nice strong corner. So after I finish up a corner, I like to look straight down the pallet. If I need to move it in or out, it's no big deal. Now's the time to do so. There's a little bit of play in this system, so just trying to make sure everything's straight and square. So I'm making pretty good progress here. As you can see, I've added an extension to one corner. That's because the main entrance to the garden, I want to frame out a door frame so that way we could have a nice gate to allow easy access. Now, these pallets are actually 7 feet wide. I made a mistake. I thought they were 8 feet wide, but basically what I did, I cut it in half and I allotted a space so that way when I attach this cut piece to this other corner over here, it looks like it's one continuous piece. So I'm going to bring the camera up, we will attach that, And then as for framing out the door frame, what I did, I actually took my final pallet. I took it apart and I got these 2x4s, and what I think we're gonna do is we're gonna plumb this up, square it up, and we're gonna make a nice door frame here. Alright, we're making some good progress on this project. Door frame is all finished up. That's nice, square and plumb. And the wife suggested we take that extra piece of the pallet that I cut in half earlier and we use that as the header, and that's actually what I did. Just kind of worked out that that was a perfect fit, and she also suggested, well, we probably should hang some type of sign on top of that header, and I agree with her. That's going to be a great spot for a sign. Off camera, I've cut these 1x1 corner posts to 6'6". Now that wildlife netting is 7 feet tall, so cutting this 6 inches shorter will allow us to catch the top edge, and that'll be very helpful when we go to drape this netting up, but also allow us to put a little bit of that netting on the ground and fold it out. And I'll probably backfill that with some mulch or something to kind of help prevent the smaller critters from tunneling underneath the fence. So without further ado, I'm just going to attach these to the corners on the pallets, and we will carry on here. So I'm going to try and bridge the gap between here and here with bamboo. Probably do 3 or 4 runners, and then I'm going to weave bamboo in between the runners. We'll see how this works. Just going to put the time lapse on and enjoy. Just finished up the bamboo fencing sections. I don't know, you tell me what you think. I think it looks kind of cool. I think all in all I would have preferred to continue the pallets in one continuous line. I think that would have been a little bit more secure. Probably would have looked a little bit better, but the nice thing about the bamboo is I had it on hand, didn't cost a dime. Additionally, it allows more air and sunlight into the garden beds here, so there's that. Let me know what you think, but I gotta tell you, I really love the header and this front entrance, and tomorrow I'll end up building a gate, try and come up with some type of latch. But anyway, I'd like to finish off today by installing this wildlife netting. I have a feeling this is gonna be tricky to lay out. I have a bunch of zip ties in my pocket here, so let's get moving. So I think you can faintly see that I have this stuff strung up now. It's very cheap, very chintzy. This is the kind of stuff where you're probably going to get a year out of it, then you're probably going to have to trash it, but for 15 bucks, I mean, I'd love to put a roll of wire on here, but this is a low budget project for this here. So we're going to make it work. It goes right down to the bottom here. I'd really like to get some of those metal landscaping stakes so I could stake this in, but I think we'll be just as fine if we take some mulch and just throw it over. There's probably like a 6-inch lip on the bottom, so hopefully that helps to keep the chipmunks out. Anyway, I'll catch you tomorrow when we build that gate. Alright, so it's the following day and I'm working on this gate. What I've done thus far is I've cut 4 pieces of this 1x1 material to 41 inches. So the long side is cut to 41 inches, and then you can see I took my miter saw and I cut the edges at a 45-degree angle. So that gives me nice square corners. So what I'm doing now is just fastening the edges of this gate frame together. So I have my square, I'll square up the corner, start with this countersunk bit, and then I will use a deck screw, single deck screw, and attach it together. So let's do that now. Before I move on to the other side, I want to share with you 2 tips I've learned over the years to help prevent wood from splitting when you're trying to drive a large fastener through a thin piece of wood. So item number 1 is pre-drill your hole. These countersunk bits work fantastic because they allow the head of the fastener to sit flush with the wood. Additionally, you can see it tapers down, so the wider end helps to prevent the screw from digging into the first piece of wood you're driving through, and creates a bit of a pilot hole through the second piece of wood. Hopefully that makes sense. But here's the other really big tip. When you're driving this screw through this thin piece of wood and you feel like, if I keep going, it's probably going to splinter the wood, crack it, here's what you do. Go drive the screw until it starts to get a little bit tough, and then back it off maybe an inch. Then go forward another half inch forward from where you stopped last time, and just keep working it in and out. And what happens is, as you drive the screw in and out, it creates a tremendous amount of friction, and that friction creates heat, and it actually helps to almost burn the screw into the wood. And I found that to help prevent cracking of the wood and splintering. So that's my quick little tip. So now we have a nice square frame, and what I'd like to do is I would like to add a cross member. The issue is, if you don't add some type of cross member, what will happen, the gate will rack, and the direction of the cross member will depend on which way you want to hang the gate, which we'll kind of go over that here shortly. But I have another piece of 1x1 material, so I'm just going to put it underneath 2 corners, like so. I want it nice and lined up in the corners. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a pencil and scribe the inside edges of my frame, get it nice and tight, and then we will take this over to the miter saw and cut this out. Then we should have a nice piece that will sit flush with the frame of the gate and should, in theory, prevent the gate from racking. Alright, I just came back from the miter saw with my diagonal piece. Let's see how this fits. Nice tight fit, everything sits flush. So what you want to do now is measure from corner to corner. This is important because this will let you know if everything is still square. So I have 58 here, and I have 57 7/8. For a garden gate, that's good enough for me. We're off an 1/8 inch. If I wanted to, I could remove just a little bit more material from this diagonal and we'd be fine. Or, well, we'd be perfect rather, but I'm okay with an 1/8 inch off here. So now we're going to fasten this piece in, and then we're going to move on. So yesterday, off camera, I ended up disassembling one of the pallets and I salvaged the boards. I just came back from the miter saw. I cut all these boards down to 41 inches and spaced them out evenly. And this is going to make for a nice fenced look on the gate. Have a bunch of old drywall screws that I'm just going to use to fasten this together. I'm just going to eyeball the spacing. You know, if it's a little bit off, I think it adds to the rustic look of the garden. So let's fasten all these boards in. Alright, now it's time to install the gate. So my right is going to be the hinge side, and as for the hinges, I'm just reusing some old interior door hinges that I had laying around. They're already fastened to the gate. But take a look at that cross member. I believe I have this correct. So the cross member goes from the bottom corner of the hinge side up to the latch side, and this is supposed to prevent racking. If we were to have it the other way, then it would be much more likely that this would rack, right? So this member right here is in tension as this side pushes down. So this side pushes down, puts tension. You have a good, strong support at the bottom corner. So again, in my mind, it's supposed to prevent racking. I think it's gonna work out just fine. So without further ado, gotta try and line up these hinges. It's gonna be a nice tight fit, but should work out just fine.
Okay, Lily, come on. Ta-da. Okay, wait, Lily, come out. Lily tested it. And then
So I'm going to critique my own work a little bit here. So in terms of functionality, gate's a good fit. It hits on the bottom a little bit, and where I'm really critiquing myself is with this post right here. I mean, this post isn't cemented into the ground. It doesn't even go below grade. So the issue is when you swing the gate open, this post tilts out of plumb towards the direction of swing of the gate. Then the bottom of the gate hits a little bit. So I'm not sure if there's an easy fix for this problem. You see, if I pull this back, then the gate swings without hitting the ground. So I'll have to think about this. Maybe I'll engineer something off camera. But aside from that, I mean, it's not going to topple over. Gate latches just fine, good little latch. And because we have that diagonal support in here, I'm not worried about this gate racking at all. It's quite strong for what it is. See, I'm putting a little bit of force on it right now, and if I swing it back, latches just fine. So I'm gonna conclude this video. Thanks for watching. Love to hear what you think, and we'll
see you on the next one.
That's right, we'll see you on the next one. Well, we'll catch you on the next one.
Same thing.